I think most people that have their finger on the pulse of the anime fandom could have guessed that Solo Leveling was going to be a massive, massive hit in the West. Maybe not to the levels of a clean sweep of the entire anime awards just based on popularity alone, but we could have guessed that a action shonen battler type of show was going to appeal to a general audience and be a massive hit. But I think a lot of people aren't aware of it wasn't that big in Japan. Some would claim that Japan sees it as mid, as you would say. But I think the thing that's more surprising to me was to see that the anime producers were kind of shocked that it wasn't going to be that big in Japan. As seen in this recent interview done by Crunchyroll's Anime Effect, they interviewed animation producer Atsushi Kaneko, and this is what he said.
Is there anything about bringing Solo Leveling to anime that has surprised you?
This is my personal opinion. The way the Solo Leveling anime was received in Japan was no different from any other anime. So when we learned how the series exceptionally blew up in popularity for our global fans, honestly speaking, this difference in reaction was very unexpected. It's not exactly a temporary hype, but I do wonder who reacts more to the episodes, first between Japanese and global fans. And again, the thing that stood out to me with this statement is, yes, for one, even though some people are saying this, he's not saying that Japan sees it as mid, because typically mid, even though it is a derogatory term, mid typically kind of states a rating, that people believe that this show is a 5 out of 10, that it is the middle road type of show. What he's more saying here is that the popularity itself, what the Japanese fandom sees, is just another one. It's in reference to how it's received. It is seen as just another battler. And I think that was something that I was foreseeing even before the series even came out. Yes, I seen there was a lot of hype for Solo Leveling before it was even adapted. Everybody was going, oh my gosh, this thing's going to be so peak. We love the manhwa. There was so much hype around it and so much popularity. But when I looked into seeing how Japan viewed it, yes, it sold well in Japan, but you're talking about something that's selling like 20,000 copies of its physical, whereas your more popular shonens are selling millions. It's not something that was selling insanely well. It's sort of in the niche area of anything. And I think a lot of the reviews that I was seeing coming out of Japan was the criticisms was that it wasn't doing enough new. It was just so kind of standard, and thus, yes, when it came to it being adapted, I assumed that was going to be the same ordeal. So it is kind of surprising me to see a producer literally saying, I'm surprised it didn't do well in Japan. Now, maybe their assumption there was that because it had at least an established fandom and it was going to look gorgeous, people would accept it. They accept all these other shonen anime. They do very, very well. Demon Slayer does increasingly well. Dragon Ball does really, really well. And they're action battlers. Why wouldn't Solo Leveling specifically do well? Yes, this is actually more of a broader statement that he's giving to the idea that over here in the West, in the global market, it is blowing up. It is doing insanely well, and I completely agree with that. It's something that absolutely grabs those that aren't like entrenched into the anime fandom. It is something new to them because they're not watching all the shows. So thus it's something that's new. What is this thing called anime? It's grabbing a new audience of viewers that weren't there before watching all the other shows. But I think the funnier conversation that's kind of coming from this interview is people that are kind of shocked that it's not doing well. And I can echo exactly what he's saying here. For those who don't know, every single season I do a Japanese ranking video where I look at all the available charts out of Japan and kind of get a sense about what is actually doing well in Japan versus the Western audience. And yes, what I found during season 1 and season 2 of Solo Leveling, even though in the West, it was doing insane. Like you can see just based on the rankings on Crunchyroll's website right here, it has nearly 1 million ratings. Now again, this is a culmination of season 1 and season 2, but even still, compared to something that had 2 cores total, like Frieren, which most people probably argued should have won the anime awards, 249. 249 versus 819,000. That is an insane difference of people that are just alone ranking the actual show. But when I looked at the Japanese rankings during these 2 seasons, it wasn't doing well. During my rankings video of winter 2024, it was 6th place on Abema, a Japanese streaming website. It was 6th place. And then on the TV rankings that I had available to me, it was only 10th place on one of them. It wasn't doing insane. It wasn't topping charts left and right. Then on the 2nd season of Solo Leveling, which I would argue was immensely better. Like I actually loved season 2 of Solo Leveling. It only went up to 5th place on Abema. It was under Apothecary Diaries, ReZero, and shoot, Nutmaster. The stupid Nutmaster show was beating it. It wasn't doing insanely well. It wasn't even on the TV rankings aggregators. Now, yes, For the streaming side of things, there's a reason why a lot of sites like Abema wouldn't actually have an insane amount of viewerships. And that was because it was actually exclusive on Amazon Prime for a little bit. So you could probably say that's probably a major reason why it wasn't charting on other sites. But there's a lot of people that were reporting, but over here on the Anime Store, it was ranking high. Yeah, sure. Maybe for like a week or something, it hit pretty high up on there. But compared to other shows like Frieren, you have much more like engagement happening. These are the registrations, the people that have added it to their list and whatnot on the Anime Store. Insanely more than Solo Leveling. Now, this isn't viewerships. Keep that in mind. This is just registrations, adding it to a list. But it goes to show you, even with the action category, it's 13th place. This isn't like something that is sweeping the board in Japan. But going back to Amazon specifically, because I want to touch in on this. And again, this is kind of a good sign to show you that it's not like something that is dominating the charts in Japan. With it having an exclusivity on Amazon for a while, the assumption there is that it's going to get a lot of viewers. We've seen that this previous season with the Old Country Bumpkin to Master Swordsman. That had an exclusivity to Amazon Prime, and thus it had insane amounts of ratings on Amazon Prime because everybody was going there to watch it, versus all the other streaming sites that would have it later. Just for reference, so people know what I'm talking about here, if you look on the actual website, you'll see available exclusivity on Prime starting January 4th. So it goes to Prime Video, and then afterwards, 3 days later, it goes to the other websites. So again, it has a timed exclusivity to Amazon Prime. Even with that in mind, if you look at the actual rankings, because unfortunately you can't see the actual viewerships on Amazon Prime, I wish they would, you can see that it has 551 ratings on Solo Leveling Season 2 specifically. That's not actually huge, especially when you consider Medalist, which aired in the same season as Season 2, and Medalist was exclusive elsewhere before it came to Amazon Prime. So Solo Leveling was exclusive there first and then went elsewhere. Medalist was exclusive on Disney before it came to Amazon Prime later on, and it had, during the season, it had more ratings. It looks like Solo Leveling beat it out at some point between then and now, but during the season, Medalist had it beat. Medalist had Solo Leveling beat on Amazon Prime. Again, it's not as big in Japan as anywhere else. And a lot of that reason, I think, is just that because, like he said, it's seen as just another show. It is seen as just another battler. And again, to those reviews that were given on the manhwa before the show even came out, their perspective is, it's another one of these. It doesn't do enough to change the formula. That's not to say the show's bad. I loved Season 2. I thought it was a lot of fun. And I think overall, it is a great show to just sit down and watch and entertain yourself. It's a show that you don't really have to think too much about. It's not a thinker show. It's a boom boom show. And when it does that, it does it really, really well. I was thoroughly enjoying the second season. But to most people, it's not something spectacular. And that was shown in Japan when they actually had their anime festival. When they had the Anime Festival Awards for last year, Solo Leveling didn't win. Frieren did. That was the show that, yes, most people over here that were trying to critically kind of review a lot of different shows, a lot of people viewed that Frieren should have won. Me personally, I feel Frieren should have won. It didn't win, unfortunately. When it comes to actual animation fans, people that are not the general public in Japan, they viewed Frieren as being the winner because it did so much more different. But again, this is from people's perspective that watch a lot of shows. They watch a lot of animation. They have expectations for something new, something creative, something that really stands out from the crowd. And they didn't view Solo Leveling as doing that. But that doesn't take away from the popularity of it globally. When he's talking about the global popularity of Solo Leveling, why that is because this massive audience that has never really touched much of anime at all is suddenly seeing this thing called Solo Leveling. And it looks amazing. And they jump in and they go, that was amazing. There's so many people that will say, I don't watch anime, but I watch Solo Leveling. It's similar to like any other big shonen battler. It's similar to things like Dragon Ball. It's similar to things like Demon Slayer. There's a lot of people that's all they've really watched and they enjoy it. But they don't really watch much other anime. They don't watch Frieren. They don't watch Danger My Heart. They don't watch these other shows that, yes, have sort of barriers to entry. They're not really interested in watching this guy who has like social anxieties, has kind of closed himself off, and has a romantic interest in some tall model girl that's in his class. They're not interested in watching some long-lived elf discover regrets. They're not interested in these things that take time to kind of develop. They want to turn it on, watch something explode, and they love it. And that's something that seemingly surprised these animation producers, which again, I think he's fluffing it up a bit. I think Aniplex, the producers behind Soul Leveling, knew exactly what they were doing. Because again, I think most of the fans that had that finger on the pulse before the season even started had a clue as to how big this would be. Had a clue that this was geared towards the Western audience. This was a global success, and they knew it was going to be a global success. And it shows by the idea that when it came to them actually marketing it, they were pushing it hard. Crunchyroll knew, but again, Crunchyroll is on the production with Aniplex. They're all the same company. They all were technically producing this. They put a bunch of money into this, knowing that it was going to be big in the West because the manhwa was huge in the West, and people love it. But it's still kind of funny to kind of consider that this guy would actually be somewhat shocked that this actually did that well, when he probably were talking to a lot of people on the board that knew this was going to be huge. And it's probably not going to be that huge in Japan. Maybe there was a hope there that because, yes, technically it's one of the best-selling manhwas in Japan, even though, again, comparatively to manga, it's not that big. Maybe there was a hope there they had that, hey, maybe this will be big in Japan as well. But that's not necessarily something that's going to hurt it. Just because it was not big in Japan doesn't mean necessarily that they lost money. That's not to say that it's not a huge success. Because, again, for a lot of these companies right now, I mean, he said it himself several times. There's a focus shift that they want this stuff to get big globally because that's where all the money is. They don't want just money out of Japan. They don't want just domestic money. They want international money. They want that money to come flowing in globally. And that's why Crunchyroll is a global company. But anyways, it all answers the question, is Soul Leveling mid in Japan? No. It's just another one of those shows. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as always. Of course, whenever it comes to kind of looking into what Japan thinks about certain anime, again, based on my rankings videos, I love to dig into this information and really kind of figure out what exactly is kind of going through the minds of Japanese audiences and how they see anime. And it's cool to see, you know, an anime producer kind of going, yeah, it didn't really quite do as much as we were hoping it to do, but it still did well over there. It's not to take away that it didn't do well there, but it did, again, about as well as Medalist. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to support this content, become a member of the channel. Until next time, y'all take care.